I'd like to welcome all of you to this celebration of 10 years of the Burlington Peace Coalition. I've been involved since day one, so this day is very special and important to me. The tune that the band just played was Simple Gifts. There's so many things that are happening to me, I'm going to divert from my speech a minute. That's the song I got married to Gene Bergman, who I met in the Peace Coalition, and I had a baby in the Peace Coalition. And so today is like just this culmination of all sorts of things that happened in my life. It's also been, today also represents a very special day for Vermont, even for the Burlington Peace Coalition to be 10 years old. Thank you for coming and helping all of us to celebrate. I'd like to say a few words about the evolution of the Burlington Peace Coalition for those of you who might not have been around. This is important, I feel, because we have grown in many ways and this has strengthened us. The purpose of the Burlington Peace Coalition has always been education, believing that with education, people will make better decisions for our future. The first 5 years were filled with activities like bringing speakers and organizing demonstrations. We had a few false attempts at opening an office. An educational resource center was something we were working toward for a long time. After a few years, other groups with special focuses started forming. In 1984, 5 years ago, a major metamorphosis took place and the Burlington Peace Coalition became a true coalition of about 10 or 12 groups. The BPC for the past 5 years has been a board of directors made up of a representative from each participating group. That board runs the Peace and Justice Center and the Peace on Earth store, which I hope all of you have been to. These two entities are resources for all of the various groups, whether it's simply an address for their mail or a free meeting space, and they are all resources for the community. We have a lending library and a speakers bureau. We've done Church Street Center courses, and we answer an awful lot of mail and a million zillion phone calls. The participating groups have continued doing the visible actions and demonstrations over the years, but with a difference. They now have a place to come home to, a family to gather together with and network with. The peace and justice movement, like an oak tree, has set down roots over these past 10 years. We are part of this community. We help provide nourishment and a conscience. Burlington would not be the same without us, and we have been an inspiration to other centers and groups across this whole country. Some of this has been very hard work, and I can't always describe the rewards, but we've persisted because it's so necessary. And on the other hand, some of it has been a lot of fun.
Excuse me. We thought that it was very important that we emphasize that any resemblance between all persons alive or dead, or any resemblances to any persons dead or alive, are, is, or may be most probably and most indefinitely, absolutely and indisputably unintentional for the most part. Also, we would like to stress that this depictive theatrical exposition is intended solely to give the viewer an aesthetic appreciation of what might otherwise be misconstrued as being a real or actual event, but what is really more or less likely exactly that. It is intended neither to be comprehensive nor incomprehensive, factual nor impractical. In other words, if you don't like it, then the producers, the writers, the directors, the performers, etc., would like to underscore the very real possibility that this was not their intention. On the other hand, all things being equal...
Wait a minute. What he means to say is, this is not meant to be a definitive history of all the things that all the people did, but we hope you enjoy it.
I said that.
So we would like to introduce our two narrators.
Who are instrumental in the founding and continue to further the work of
the Burlington Peace Coalition,
Gene Bergman and Robin Lloyd. Applause.
I'd like to give special thanks to our page turner tonight, Jesse Gumo, who is the same age as the Burlington Peace Coalition.
Looking back over the last 10 years, it's possible that Vermont's peace movement has had more impact than we've ever really imagined. Citizens, you and ourselves, have become activists for peace and justice, and we've touched the hearts and minds of our neighbors and our friends in every corner of our state. Thousands of people have undergone conversions in attitudes and consciousness. It might be compared in some ways to the anti-slavery movement of the abolitionists.
Our villages, towns, and cities have set an example of grassroots democracy, inspiring people across the country and around the world. Our commitment and our actions have been a beacon of light for people who struggle to live in peace and pursue happiness.
Even in these dark times, even in this winter of America, we have carried the vision forward. 1979, a major accident at 3 Mile Island, the signing of the SALT II Treaty.
The overthrow of the Shah in Iran and Somoza in Nicaragua. 2 US-backed dictatorships fell in nationalist revolutions.
But the forces of the right were also active. Led by the Conservative Committee on the Present Danger and other conservative think tanks, the American right began a sustained attack on what they called Jimmy Carter's weak foreign policy. It was in this atmosphere of upheaval and reaction that the Burlington Peace Coalition took its first steps. BPC, that's how we referred to the all-volunteer group that formed in January 1979. The idea had been brewing for many years, but the spark came from a talk by Terry Provence, who was speaking on behalf of disarmament and conversion for the American Friends Service Committee and the Mobilization for Survival.
Less than 2 months later, the new coalition staged a march, the first of many it would help to organize over the next decade.
Rocked by the accident at 3 Mile Island. No longer could people deny the catastrophic risks of nuclear power. In response to the crisis, 60 people from Burlington went to Washington, D.C. for a no nukes rally.
Even at the start, we were making the deadly connection, in this case between nuclear power and nuclear weapons. This was also the year of the Burlington Aid to Cambodia Fund, the Wall Street action, 50 years after the stock market crash in 1929, and a visit to the Plattsburgh Air Force Base. 4 members of the Peace Coalition were wined, dined, and given a tour, but they declined to join the Air Force anyway.
1980. The American right and their star, Ronald Reagan, staged a frightening offensive.
The Soviets invaded Afghanistan, turmoil grew in El Salvador, revolution took root in Nicaragua.
And the United States Embassy was seized in Iran. Jimmy Carter moved to the right, but it just wasn't enough to beat the great miscommunicator.
The Peace Coalition responded to the urgency in the air.
Along with a new organization, a new movement was growing.
We staged educational forums and joined in demonstrations. On Big Business Day, April 17th, a 30-foot-long corporate monster danced throughout Burlington.
And in May, the peace movement joined the Memorial Day Parade. Our float was a black coffin and a banner reading, "Let's make war obsolete."
The draft was back, but so was opposition. People against the draft leafleted the July 4th fireworks and set up a draft counseling table across the street from the federal building for 2 weeks. It was an early sign of things to come.
The federal building would become, over the next few years, a familiar place to hold protests. We stood up,
sat in,
even died in.
to demand a change in U.S. policies. That summer was survival summer, and on August 9th, the anniversary of the atomic bombing of Nagasaki, Church Street became our stage. The street had only recently been torn up to create the marketplace. Churned up earth was an appropriate background for the Nagasaki die-in. The peace movement could get very creative and very serious.
1981. A very second-rate Hollywood actor becomes president and quickly begins the greatest military buildup ever in American history. One of his first moves was to start a not-so-secret war against Nicaragua. Death squads were already creating a bloodbath in El Salvador. In Europe, huge demonstrations were held against U.S. Euro missiles, while in America, Secretary of State Alexander Haig talked loosely about nuclear warning shots over that continent.
Lighter moments. We got some help from Pete Seeger, whose Memorial Auditorium performance raised $20,000 for the movement. His fee, $50 for gas. There was Food Hunger Day, the Mother's Day Peace Pageant,
a candlelight memorial for Archbishop Oscar Romero, who had been assassinated the previous year, and oh yes, Bernie Sanders became Burlington's mayor.
Soon the issue of crisis relocation planning would become a subject of citywide and statewide debate.
Meanwhile, in his garret apartment, Jim Geyer was busy making dots with a friend on a huge piece of paper. It became known as the dark chart.
You can't even draw these dots. You can draw one dot for every 3 megatons of firepower in an existing nuclear arsenal. It'll take us 3 years.
Jim, I think you need to get some sleep. You're getting delirious.
I can't sleep. How can I sleep knowing that we're living in a nuclear tinderbox?
But it's no use getting all upset about it.
Damn, I lost count. Let's see, 180,000 megatons divided by 120 boxes is 1,500 dots per box.
Didn't you say that each dot was worth 3 megatons?
You're right, you're right. That would mean we'll have to draw 60,000 dots. That would only take us a year.
Wait. Didn't you say that each warhead was each 60,000 warheads, not 60,000?
What's the calculator? What? Okay, wait a minute. 60,000 divided by 10 is 6,000. 6,000 times 3 is 18,000 megatons. You're right.
18, not 180.
Divided by 3 is 6,000. We only have to draw 6,000.
Not 180,000.
All right. Just reduced the world nuclear arsenal by 174,000 megatons. Maybe now I can get some sleep.
Uh-oh!
What?
You told
Dave Bellinger! I've got to go to City Hall.
Now?
Yeah, he's talking right now. He's going to tell everyone there's 30 times as many megatons as there really are.
Oh, no!
Well, Jim didn't make it to City Hall in time, but he did bring an updated version of the chart to local churches, peace meetings, and anywhere else he could.
And it proved to be a remarkably effective educational device. Eventually, the chart made its way onto the pages of the Burlington Free Press, and later the LA Times, the Washington Post, the New York Times, even Izvestia. Senator Leahy talked about it on the Senate floor.
The chart was a representation of the world nuclear arsenal. In the center is a small box with a single dot. That one dot represents all the firepower of World War II, including Hiroshima and Nagasaki, 3 megatons. The overall chart contains 6,000 dots, symbolizing the firepower in existing nuclear weaponry, equivalent to 6,000 World War IIs.
Jim and my friend Robin Lloyd here drew up a resolution to freeze the manufacture of nuclear weapons. This proposed resolution was sent, along with the dot chart, to a number of town meetings. 18 towns passed the resolution.
Burlington not only endorsed the freeze, but elected Bernie Sanders and Terry Berishis, one of the early members of the coalition.
Last year, when the US and the Soviets finally agreed to begin destroying nuclear weapons, the chart showed the progress and how far we still have to go. Many public events and demonstrations were held in 1981. The BPC once again joined the Memorial Day Parade, but we were asked not to bring the coffin along. Instead, we had a large white dove puppet.
That year we did a lot of walking.
From Battery Park to the Burlington Square Mall on Mother's Day. In the summer, many of us took part in the big AFSC organized walk from Washington to Moscow, Vermont, that is. And in the fall, on Halloween, we walked from City Hall to the neighborhood parks in Pomeroy Park and Battery Park.
Disarm the monsters, we demanded. If only the arms race was a terror we could laugh at. If only it would pass like the ghosts and goblins of late October. But as the arms race escalates, we are truly walking through a time of extreme danger for the human race.
The BPC held its first public conference in October that year. Thinking globally, acting locally is what we called it. The phrase has become part of the local vocabulary since then. 1982. And the freeze was in the news again.
At March town meetings, Vermonters turned out across the state to speak their minds. Over 177 towns eventually said no to the arms race.
But really the big event of that year for Vermont and the peace movement nationwide was the June 12 March for Disarmament. It became the greatest organizing achievement in the coalition's short history. We take you now to the apartment of Wendy Coe, the center of an electric and pulsating network of activity, all coordinated with a maximum of efficiency, discipline, and organized cooperation. It is the 8th of June, 1982.
You'll have to have your money here by 3 p.m. Yes,
I need a
27
ticket.
St. Paul Street.
I need a bus ticket.
Well, there are.
I need a bus ticket to New York City. Actually,
Want
there are
5
two
tickets
tickets
for the
left.
city?
2 bus tickets for New York City.
Well, we have
Just
three.
stay.
Stop! There's 6 people and I have 6 tickets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay.
The coalition coordinated northern Vermont activity for the New York City March. Over 3,000 Vermont residents, 22 busloads were there. On June 12th, the Vermont contingent was right up front with bread and public theater at the head of 1 million people, the largest peace march in U.S. history.
The June 12 march made the country aware of the growing support for an end to the arms race. It also put Vermont politicians on notice that they could no longer avoid dealing with the issue. That fall, congressional candidates had to discuss their positions at a BPC forum on peace and national security.
Mayor Sanders declared Hiroshima-Nagasaki Days, and the UVM Library asked for a subscription to the Coalition's newsletter. The peace movement was becoming a respected part of Vermont life.
1983. Diversity and creativity were becoming hallmarks of our coalition work. It was an educational nonprofit corporation now, organizing workshops and slideshows.
And vigils, and even the first international work camp in Burlington. And it was also an active supporter of projects developing across the state.
Bridges for Peace.
Tax resistance.
The Peace Belt Treaty.
But the largest local activity came in June. On June 18th, over 500 people marched through downtown Burlington to link the nuclear issue with foreign intervention and human needs.
Speakers such as Dr. Charles Clements, Mary Futrell from the National Education Association, Leslie Kagan from the Mobilization for Survival, and Vermont's own Dave Dellinger and Grace Paley talked to the crowd at a park in the South End.
The location had been selected for a purpose. To be near General Electric, makers of the Vulcan Gatling gun.
I'm gonna lay down my Gatling gun, down by the bar now, down by the bar now, down by the bar now. I'm gonna lay down my Gatling gun, down by the bar now. I'm gonna say, oh, no more.
2 days after the rally, more than 100 people gathered at the factory gate to block trucks. 88 people were arrested, the first in a series of direct actions which has continued for over 5 years.
The summer of 1983 was also the time of the March on Washington for Jobs, Peace, and Freedom. The coalition was still making connections, now between peace and social justice. Its main work remained education. There were teach-ins, speakers, and public events of all sorts. People also reached out across the northern border.
Burlington was well represented at a Montreal demonstration against Euromissiles, part of an international day of protest. At home, there was a picket at the Federal Building to call a halt to the U.S. war against Nicaragua, and in late November, perhaps the most ambitious fundraiser to date, the opening of the Peace on Earth store at the old home of Ben & Jerry's on College Street. The success of Peace on Earth set the stage for a major expansion of the Peace Coalition. (1984). As groups met to discuss the opening of a Peace Resource Center, educational work continued. BPC held forums on the news media, Central America,
and a war resistor named St. Valentine. We also formed discussion groups on the Middle East.
And the third Thinking Globally, Acting Locally conference. Mayor Sanders declared February 21 Witness for Peace Day, drawing attention to the citizens' initiative that was taking Americans to the Nicaraguan border. And then, on March 23rd, a rally at Senator Robert Stafford's office to protest his stand on El Salvador and the rest of Central America. It became a 3-day occupation of the Champlain Mill headquarters. The protesters soon became known as the Winooski 44.
And 6 months later, the accused became the accusers in the most effective political trial of the decade. In the end, the jurors were converted and the defendants found innocent. It was a triumph for international law and the necessity defense, and for everyone concerned about the illegal actions of our government. To commemorate the victory, Women's International League for Peace and Freedom put up a poster at the Burlington Airport.
By the summer of 1984, the Peace Coalition was going through some big changes. Events such as the Candle Boat Walk to Lake Champlain, organized by the AFSC, brought in new people, and the coalition finally moved into a downtown location.
Over the next 4.5 years, the Peace and Justice Center had several dedicated coordinators: Mark Estrin, Irma Ciardo, Bob Fisher, and Gene Pinio, and most recently, David Jonah.
And managers of the Peace on Earth store, Deb Packard, Becca Cunningham, and Alice Christian. They worked out of the Coalition's Peace and Justice Center, a combination resource clearinghouse and gift store, struggling to balance the growing needs of member groups. It was demanding and sometimes frustrating work.
Yet the center always embodied the essence of peace, nonviolence, and tranquility. To prove it, we bring you now a day in the life of the Peace and Justice Center.
I'll get it.
Okay.
Hello, Peace and Justice Center. Yes, she is.
I'll get it.
Yeah, why
Hello,
not?
Peace on Earth store. Who?
Okay.
Sure. Just a
Sure,
sec,
come in,
please.
Sylvia.
Dave, it's Police Chief Scully on the phone. He wants to know if anyone's going to get arrested at GE next week.
Not that I know of. Oh, Alice, this is to you. Some guy says he'll beat any price you've got on Guatemalan goods.
Tell him we've already got a good supplier, okay?
She says she's already got a good supply.
Not that he knows it.
No, thank you. The store coordinator said that you've got a good supply.
Dave, if you see Roger Wilder, tell him they got a warrant for his arrest. Sure, yep, bye.
Okay.
I can't believe it. Roger spray painted a bank.
Oh, which one?
The Chittenden. Hello, Peace on Earth store. Oh, hi, yeah, just a sec, please. Dave, it's for you. It's the landlord. Oh, okay, sure.
Hi, Frank. How you doing?
I'll be right with you. Okay? Sorry.
What?
Hello,
I don't
Peace and
believe
Justice Center.
Really?
How many? Where?
Well, no, I haven't even got any idea. No,
Okay.
well, if
Yeah,
I
all
find anything out, I'll
right.
let you know.
He's on the other line. Wait a minute.
no, I
Dave,
really
it's the
don't.
cruise watch on the line. They just sent out a bunch